The story behind the story. In faith, culture, news, and entertainment. This is Billy Hallowell.
Welcome to the Billy Hallowell Podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about forgiveness. This issue of whether or not we're willing to forgive other people for what they've done to us. And a lot of us, I think, are walking around with so much pain from the past. Years or decades ago, somebody did something to us. Maybe somebody did something to us last week and we're struggling with it. And I think a lot of us assume we've forgiven. But the problem is I think we think about forgiveness in the wrong way. We assume that forgiveness is only about the other person, that we have to give them our forgiveness, that's an important thing for them. And look, when we hurt somebody, we do want to know that they've forgiven us. We do want to know that they love us and that we can move past what we've done or we've said or how we've behaved. And so that's an important element, but that's not really what forgiveness is about. And I look at my own life. I've had so many struggles with people who are close to me, and there are people I haven't talked to in years in my life, people that should be close to me and they're not. And you start to think through, okay, have I forgiven? Am I forgiving? What does it really mean to forgive? And forgiveness is more about what's in your heart, not being controlled by the past, not having anger every time you think of what that person has said or done, or every time you think about that person wishing bad things. That is not forgiveness. Forgiveness is about not being controlled by the past things that have happened to you, by letting go of that pain and that anger. And look, it's really complicated. There's that fine line between finding the balance between love and caring for other people and forgiving them, and then self-preservation. There are people who just aren't healthy for us. And so forgiveness, in my mind, is really something that has to be limitless. We have to be able to continue to do it. When somebody hurts us, we have to be able to let go of that and have grace for them. That is so not what our culture tells us to do. We live in a culture that encourages us, I think, to be divided, to not really find common ground. It encourages us to focus on ourselves. It's really the selfish sort of, not just generation, but I think era that we're living in. And all of that impacts how we think and look at other people. When it's all about us, it becomes hard to look beyond ourselves. And I think the irony is, in order to forgive, which is, again, it's about us, to forgive, we have to look beyond ourselves to get to that place where we can say, I am no longer being controlled by what happened to me. And I look at the Bible, and Matthew 18, verses 21 and 22, Peter comes to Jesus and he asks him, Lord, how many times should I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Which sounds like a nice number. It's like 7 sounds like a lot. If somebody hurts me 7 times, and I've forgiven them 7 times, is that enough? And Jesus's response is really powerful. Jesus says, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. That's the NIV. In the King James Version, it's a little bit different. It says until 70 times 7, so 490 times. Either way, what Jesus is clearly saying is that we have to continue to forgive, that forgiveness of others is an essential thing, and that we cannot be controlled by the past. Jesus forgave us. God has forgiven us. We need to forgive other people. But if not for any other reason, it's so that we are not dragged into the past every time we try to live in the present because of what somebody has said or done to us. Life can be really painful. There are people who I want to have a relationship with and I just can't, and we can talk the ins and the outs of that all the time, but what happens when I think about those people? Do I pray for them? Do I want the best for them? I think our perspective when it comes to forgiveness, and I'm not pledging here to be an expert on forgiveness, nor am I pledging to be some sort of expert on psychology. I'm also not a pastor. So this is just my experience, that we need to get to a place where we can love other people, even those that we don't have deep relationships with. We need to assess and think, what has my behavior been? How have I hurt other people? And when we realize that maybe we have hurt people, we need to go to them and ask for their forgiveness and ask for them to say, hey, let's move on from here. Let's have a stronger relationship. And maybe you've hurt somebody to a place where they're not going to want to have that relationship with you. Maybe you're that person that I've been talking about, the one who is so toxic to that person that they feel they can't have a relationship with. All you can do is keep your own heart pure, go and ask for forgiveness, and try to be better moving forward. But I have just struggled a lot with this, particularly with family and people who throughout my life have been absent or have not been there. And in thinking about all of the times I have thought about those people, the anger that I used to have, in trying to really ask God, and I think we can do this. We can go to God and say, grant me the peace and the strength to forgive. Grant me your peace. We know that God is so far above and beyond what we are, and that he can give us that peace. And so I would just encourage all of us this week, as we think about our interactions, we think about those who are closest to us, those we have hurt, that we're honest with ourselves, not only about our mistakes and the places that we need to be better, but that we're also honest about how we're thinking about those who have hurt us. Are we angry still? Do we still hold on to things from the past? And I know I'm not perfect and I struggle with this every single day. How do we move forward? What would Jesus do? We love to talk about, what WWJD, there were those wristbands years ago that everybody would wear, but in practice, what does that look like? Here Jesus is telling us, he's telling Peter, 70 times 7. That is a really convicting statement, that you have to continue to forgive. You don't need to be a doormat for people, and you can avoid people, but you have to forgive. And I do believe it's possible to not have a deep relationship with somebody and to forgive them and to have that love for them still from afar and from a distance. And so we've got to think through that. We don't want to have regrets in life, not only regrets with other people, but regrets in how we've lived our faith out. And so if we're going to truly live the gospel out, we have to do that, and we have to be honest with ourselves. So that's just something that's been on my heart today. So I wanted to focus the podcast today on that. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Happy Monday.
Thanks for listening to the Billy Hallowell Podcast. Visit Billy on Facebook or Twitter at Billy Hallowell for more on faith, culture, entertainment, and plenty more.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.